Grover Norquist, wonderful to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Good to be with you.
So I think we have to talk taxes.
Okay.
And there's been some very serious tax reform that's happened in America, and we're seeing presumably some of the fruits of it. I'd love it if you could tell us what you're seeing.
Sure. The big change that took place was the Trump tax cut, the Republican tax cut that Trump strengthened when he ran for president. So let's add some things to it. We took the top corporate rate in America from 35%, which is the worst, the highest in the world, higher than Communist China. Communist China's at 25, the United States at 35, Japan was at 30, lower, France was lower, that's pretty dumb. Germany was at 25, Ireland's at 12.5, Hong Kong at 15, that's pretty low, 9 in Hungary, we're at 35. So everybody in the world had to say, should we invest in America? I don't know, they steal more than anybody else if you make a buck.
Fascinating.
And no, there are many reasons to invest in the United States, but taxes were a strong argument
against.
No. So we took that down to 21, and capital has flown into the United States. We expected that in 3 to 4 years you would see tremendous increase in growth because money doesn't fly into the United States and a new factory get built overnight or a pipeline get built tomorrow.
Right.
These things take a while to kick in for productivity. Although we saw the economy start getting very strong almost immediately in anticipation of 3 and 4 years from now, massive new growth. So when people wonder, is it going to peter out? Is this a sugar high? Is it something that happened and then this was designed for the long run.
You're saying this is just the beginning, basically.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes. So that's very positive. We cut taxes for every American, about a 25% on average, 25% reduction in personal taxes in every state, about evenly distributed around the country. If you were a couple, you would normally get to exempt the first $12,000 you wouldn't pay taxes on, 0% rate on $12,000. It's now 0% on $24,000. The first $24,000 you earn, nobody taxes it at all. That's pretty impressive. And then we doubled the per child tax credit as well. So the more kids, the more protection you have against high taxes. We reduced the death tax so that first $10 million that you have in your estate, a farm, a house, a building, whatever you own, can go to your children or however you want to spend it and giving it to other people. And now the question is what's next? And the big what's next is we are going to eliminate the taxation of inflation when we tax capital gains. Okay. Today, if you buy a house and sell a house, they tax you on the difference, and that includes over 20, 30, 40, 50 years, a lot of inflation. So you're paying money on this, and the only real gain was maybe a fifth of that or half of that, depending on how long you held it.
So we want to get rid of the inflation piece.
Yes, yeah. And this can be done. The Supreme Court ruled in 2002, and again just last month, that the bureaucracy at the IRS or at Treasury can define cost as cost plus inflation. So it's not historic cost, what did you pay for it 50 years ago? So what did you pay for it 50 years ago? Add the inflation, now what's the gain between what you paid for it with inflation and what you sell it for? So we will see about $7 trillion in corporate assets change hands. Things that have been held for a long, long time, and a company doesn't sell it, it's an old parking lot, because if they sell it, big tax hit. Now, not a big tax hit, all that stuff will get redeployed. It's actually a deregulation of $7 trillion of assets that should really be over here, but it's been sitting here because...
For tax reasons, basically.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes, they've been locking people away from capital they needed, away from things they wanted, and this will all happen in the next year and a half. Expect this decision by the Trump White House. Trump has said publicly he wants to do this. Other people in the White House said, we're going to be doing this. So it's moving forward very well. You can dot all the I's and cross all the T's.
Sure.
But next 3 months or so, I think you'll see it. That is going to be another strong boost to the US economy and therefore the world economy and to state economies as well. That plus the tax cut, and if Trump is reelected with a Republican House and Senate, there'll be another tax cut coming down the road, particularly for small businesses.
Fascinating. This is a great synopsis of the tax cut here. Incredible. What do you say? One of the typical criticisms that I've heard in the media especially is this is actually a tax cut for the rich mainly. How do you respond to that? I just hear that all the time.
The first response is, You've heard it all the time because they say it all the time.
Right.
And when they want to when we want to cut taxes on gasoline, which hits middle income people, they say that's a tax cut for the rich. It's always a tax cut for the rich. Every tax cut is a tax cut for the rich because they don't have anything else to say. They used to say it would raise the deficit, but what happened when Reagan cut taxes, when Coolidge cut taxes, when Kennedy cut taxes, as revenue went up. Now, sometimes they can spend too much, that's true.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the tax code.
Taxes.
Has everything to do with spending.
Okay.
So more growth gives you more revenue. And the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which all the liberals swear by, they point out that if over a 10-year period you grow not at 3% a year, the economy, but at 4% a year, that you will gain $3 trillion. So if you grow from the 2% growth under and lower from Obama to 4%, and you do that for 10 years, $6 trillion of additional revenue come in just from the growth. So the best way to raise taxes is to grow more rapidly and for a long time.
I see. So you're effectively lowering taxes, but the tax income.
You're taxing more income. When every time during the Obama years, millions of Americans left the workforce. They couldn't find anything. They were 30, 40, 50 years old, and they gave up looking. They no longer counted as unemployed. In the United States, when they count unemployment, they ask, are you looking for work?
I see.
And if you say, I'm not because I gave up looking, you're not counted as unemployed. Only if you say, I want a job and I'm looking for a job, you get to be unemployed. So some of the reduction in the unemployment numbers when Obama was president was as people left the workforce, quit looking.
Right.
They no longer count as unemployed. Oh, look, fewer unemployed people. You also put them in prison. That also makes fewer unemployed people because they don't count. But under Trump, people have been coming out of prison and going to work and out of being not looking and starting to look. So last month, 300,000 people who hadn't been looking moved into the economy, and many of them got jobs. 70% of the people earlier this year, the number that I saw, 70% of the people who got jobs that particular month, a few months earlier, had not even been looking. They hadn't been looking before. So they weren't counted as unemployed, but they were. So it is a huge jump up to get more people working with higher incomes. That gets you more government revenue, not with cutting taxes, but by having more wealth and the government taking the same slice of it, or actually a smaller slice.
Grover, I'm sure you've been following the deregulation efforts of the administration.
You're trying, there's so many.
Yes, well, no, exactly. And I'm just wondering, how does that actually fit into your vision of how the tax cuts would work? 'Cause I get the sense these two work together. You were implying that as you were speaking earlier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, Reagan did two big things. He deregulated and he cut taxes. And they were about equal in how much they drove the economic growth.
Okay.
And I think the same thing is true with Trump. One of the questions, the tax cut was designed for maximum growth 3-4 years into the future. But you started to see growth right away.
Right.
A lot of that was the immediate deregulation of saying, we're not going to do this Obama regulation. It may never have even gone into effect, but it did depress the economy because people knew it was coming.
They were anticipating
So when
these
they
rules,
killed
yeah.
regs that never happened, the economy jumped. Why? Because people were not investing because I'm not going to invest, look at what's happening. That's not happening? Oh, now I will. So step one is don't do the things Obama threatened. Step two, undo the things Obama started to do. Step three, deregulate things that have been stupid for 50 years, not just for 10 years, and move forward. So the deregulation is every bit as important as the lower taxes.
And what would be, is there any particular element of deregulation rule that you can think of that made us really significant impact?
The changes in labor law, they were changing labor law. The Supreme Court decision that labor unions could not force you to pay them dues to have a government job. They charge $1,000 to be a teacher.
Massive shift on the teachers' union side, exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Hundreds of millions of dollars that used to be stolen from workers and given to unions to play politics with will no longer be stolen.
Fascinating. Any final words before we finish up?
The economy is going great. We have more to do. It really does determine if we can keep the economy growing. If we elect a Republican House to go with the Senate and the President, you'll see a second boom stronger than the first one.
Excellent to have you. Grover Norquist.
Thank you.